Hello. Welcome to Brainstorming Tools to Revolutionize Your Science. This is a Transcend Professional Development Core short video series video. So, what tools are we going to look at today to help your science? First, we'll do the idea bracket, then move on to the idea mutator, go on to concept smasher, and finalize our time together here with chain phrases. Let's jump right in to the first one. So, idea bracket, what is it? It's ideas competing in a tournament-style competition. So, how do we do this? Here are the methods. You're going to set up 8 ideas in a bracket, or 16, or 32, or even just 4. Anything that's divisible by 4. This little icon I have up here. You can see that it is in a set of 4. And so for each bracket matchup, you're going to have an idea, so 2 ideas competing, and you're going to determine the winning idea. So maybe I have yellow and green, and you're going to decide that, yeah, yellow is going to be the best idea, and that winning idea is going to move on to the next round. You'll keep doing this until you have a single winner at the end. Now, what makes this different from just picking out of 8 or 16 or whatnot is that you actually implement 3 rules along the way that will change things. The rules, I call them modify, merge, and markup. I have a little description here, and you can actually even use little symbols. So modify, you can modify your winning idea. If you have an idea and you realize, oh, I have a better version of this idea, you can modify that and formulate it moving on. Merge is really cool. It's when you realize, oh, these 2 ideas work greater together. So you can merge 2 ideas into a single winning idea. And then finally, markup is if there's an important but non-winning idea that you want to keep track of, you can mark that up to say, hey, this is cool. I don't want to lose track of this, but it's not quite the winning idea for today, but certainly would be great for another time. So that's the methods. This is what a template could look like here for 8 ideas. And let's go through an example. Let's say a manageable chemistry demonstration. You're working with students, you want to demonstrate something, but you don't want it to be too crazy, but you want it to be interesting. So I came up with 8 ideas here. The first matchup here is involving vinegar. Second one is salt versus acid and base color changes. Third matchup is common chemistry demonstrations, elephant toothpaste versus Diet Coke, but maybe with an energy calculator. And then the fourth matchup is soda dissolving things versus temperature and pressure freezing tests. So that's sort of round 1 up here. Moving on to round 2, I find that, I've done cork launchers and that's interesting, but it might be a little too crazy to do it indoors. So maybe I could replace that. So that's the first modification. I'll modify cork launchers with balloon inflation at the top of a bottle. Similarly, salt falling out of a solution is interesting, but maybe that's a little too boring. Maybe I could do a super saturation series where I have salt, sugar, other precipitations. And so that's my second modification. Over on the bottom rung here, I thought that Diet Coke and Mentos energy calculator is interesting, but maybe make it more general rather than just Diet Coke and Mentos. I could just do overall chemical reaction pressure gauge. And then finally, I thought, well, yeah, temperature and pressure was a little more interesting than soda dissolving, but that's still worthwhile enough to sort of mark it for later. Moving on to round 3, I find that vinegar and baking soda balloon inflation remains strong, so that's my winner. And then I thought chemical reaction pressure gauge was also a winner. And then finally, when I get to actually round 4, I found that, oh, this would be a great idea to actually combine these 2 ideas, to merge them together. That maybe we can use the balloon as a pressure gauge and try all sorts of different chemical reactions. We can try the vinegar and baking soda, we can try Diet Coke and Mentos, like back here, and even like the elephant toothpaste or things like that, and see which ones generate more gas by inflating the balloon more or less. So that is the idea bracket. You can certainly do things of your own. You could try different modifications. You could add more or less. Really, this is a template for you to try. All right, next up is idea mutator, which is sort of the inverse of the idea bracket, you actually submit your idea to rounds of random mutation. So you actually start with a single idea and then mutate out. So the methods, generate a starting idea. So you can call that round one. So you have a circle, maybe round one. You add to a circle on the left side of your paper. And then you're going to make two branches off the first idea. So that's going to be your round two, each with a new circle. And then for each branch, you're going to have a random number from 1 to 10. Use a dice, a computer, etc. And you're going to select a mutation from the table that matches that dice number. So maybe this is a 7 and this is a 2. And then, so for your original idea, for this top one, 7, you're going to look at your table of mutations. You're going to make the mutation is to make the idea more complex. Or for the bottom example here, you're going to have to make the idea harder. And then you can create that mutated idea, put it in the circle, and that's your mutation. You can continue branching off, doing more and more as you want, though I find that starting with 4 is probably a good stopping point. So this is what a template might look like. And as an example, maybe a statistics slide theme. So my idea, I thought, is, well, it'd be pretty interesting to have a statistics presentation of how not to present statistics, for the benefit of non-statisticians. Add some random numbers, 7 and 10. And so I find that for the top one, I need to make the idea more complex. So maybe I'll add a jargon-laden first page of all the things you shouldn't do at the beginning. And on the bottom branch here, I need a limitation. So maybe I have to stick with simple language. I can do third round of mutations. For the very top, I need to add a limitation to this second idea here. And so maybe after my jargon-laden first page, I can use no other numbers. I can't use p-values, I can't do means. I have to explain it all in words or pictures. And then maybe to add spice, maybe throughout this, I'm actually showing distorted statistics that actually are dishonest and showing you sort of that how not to by showing what can go wrong if you're not doing it correctly. And then the bottom here, so maybe 3 and 10. So 3, I got to make it more extreme. So XKCD, the author, Randall, he has a book called Thing Explainer where he explains very complicated things using only the 1,000 most common words. Maybe I could do that a la XKCD, where I can only use the simplest of language, the 1,000 most common words. And then at the bottom here, adding yet another limitation is that, again, the first mutation was simple language, and so maybe the second mutation of simplification or limitation is a single concept per slide. I can't do more than one concept per slide. All right, that's idea mutation. And again, you can do whatever you want with this. You could even branch out. Maybe you want to have 3 mutations per round, or go to further rounds. And of course, this is just the starting mutations. You could do any sort of your own mutations, and actually for specific ideas, some of the most fun is actually come up with idea-specific mutations. So maybe instead of adding twists, you need to add, more stats or whatever for your specific idea. That's idea mutation. All right, moving along to concept smasher. This is where you crash ideas together in a creative flurry. The method for this, you can start with one of 2 basic options. You either have one list of 20 concepts twice, so that's like list A, 1 through 20, and then you just repeat that list A, 1 through 20. Or you have 2 lists of 20 concepts once. So maybe you have list A, and then you have list B, 1 through 20. So this is 1A to 20A and 1B through 20B. And you're going to need to label concepts and you need to list from 1 to 20. And you're going to pick 2 numbers from each of the lists, 1 to 20 randomly. So maybe in list A, you have number 7, and in list B, you have 13. Then you're going to need to come up with an idea based on those 2 concepts together. And you can repeat for as many 2-number combinations as desired. So this is what a template would look like here. So you either have, this with a single list, so just repeat those, or you can have 2 different lists, and that's the example I'll use. The example I'm going to try is interdisciplinary collaboration showcase. So for the first side, I'm in kind of biomedical sciences. That or health sciences, so I'll have a bunch of health fields here, and then a bunch of, to make it interdisciplinary, a bunch of other fields from hard sciences down to sort of creative writing. So for the first thing here, I did random numbers. I got 4, and then for the second list, I got 20. So I need to somehow combine population health with creative writing. So maybe the idea would be to incorporate hidden health issues, issues that don't have a lot of warning signs, like hypertension or radon exposure, into like a TV show episode, that creative writing aspect. And I can do the same for these other ones, like oncology and electromagnetism. Maybe look at evidence of electromagnetic sources for either preventative or risk factors for cancers, because oncology is a study of cancer. And rural health, philosophy, oncology, philosophy, and even infectious disease and anthropology, where I need to find ancient bacterial infections. So these are ways to smash ideas, concepts together to generate new combined ideas. And just like the other brainstorms, you can play around with this. You could have more lists. You could smash together 3 lists of ideas, or you could have longer lists, shorter lists, whatever you want to do. The concept is yours to expand upon. All right, our final brainstorming tool here is chain phrases. So what does this entail? Well, this is a way to short circuit your inner critic with a chain of ideas. Methodology-wise, you're going to start by writing down a single phrase. For example, let's just say like your phrase is 3 words, A, B, and C. And then you're going to write down another phrase below the first, which is start with the last word of the previous phrase. So if you're ABC, this is sort of diagrammically, you'd start with C and then maybe like E, Q. And then you continue changing phrases, Q, Q, P, whatever, keep going and going. Now, you don't need to be chained, as it were, to exactly the last word. If a word doesn't quite fit or you can't really keep it going, you can bend the rules, the second to last word or a similar word. The main point is to keep writing and keep the chain going to get these ideas out, short-circuiting your critic. And you continue until you do a quota. Maybe it's just a time-based one, or maybe it's a output-based one, like 20 phrases is a good place to start. So this is what the template would look like, starting phrase and then going from there. So as an example, let's say the phrase preliminary data with no funding. So I'm not going to bore you with going through all these, but here's what I came up with that. So starting phrase, we ended with funding. So I'm going to start my next phrase with funding. Easy projects with course development grants. Ends with grants. So I start with grants on the micro scale, etc. Now here's some examples of where I don't exactly follow. For example, small scale science is a suite of summer student projects. I didn't really end with projects. I thought student was more important, so I used student instead. Or like, for example, here I ended with pre-collected data. I didn't really want to reuse that. So I thought, well, what's similar to that? Well, public access data. So I started with public access data. So the idea is to be flexible, to get ideas out by chaining them, using that sort of as a limitation or a starting point. All right, those are our 4 brainstorming tools. Here's the summary of them. We have the idea bracket. You start with a bunch of ideas and you compete against them, modifying, merging, and marking as you go to crown a final idea at the end. The idea mutator is sort of the inverse. You start with an idea and you mutate it through a variety of random mutations, so you get a bunch of mutated ideas at the end. Concept smasher, you either have 1 or more lists and you smash those ideas together with a combined set of ideas at the end. And then chain phrases, you start with a phrase and then you build phrases by using the last word of the previous phrase to start the next phrase, and you keep doing that. So I gave some examples as a bonus if you want some ideas to get you started with trying these out yourself. For idea bracket, you could think of new technical skills you could focus on this year, whether those are sort of physical skills, like computing skills, even communication skills. Those would be ideas. Idea mutator, maybe you want to think of a cool hands-on breakout session for a symposium. There's a lot of talking, a lot of sitting in a symposium, a lecture series. Maybe you could find some ways to get people out of their seats, get their hands busy. Concept Smasher, maybe you could think of different poster presentation visualizations to make your poster stand out, make your poster pop. And then finally, chain phrases. Maybe you could think of unique research projects for small colleges, how to actually get research going at small places. All right, you can actually get the tools yourself if you're interested. I have a link in the description of this video, but what it will actually look like here is a Drive folder, and you can get PowerPoint templates of all the tools we dealt with here. With that, thanks for joining me for these brainstorming tools. Hopefully these help revolutionize your science.